take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Virstyne.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
Please visit our website at truthertalk.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, all of those things. It's good to be here. It's good to be back. Hey, Virstyne, what's going on?
Nothing. It is. It's good to be back.
It is.
We've been chilling for a while.
Yeah, we took a long break. I was on maternity leave, and then you were doing your music. So how's your music going?
Good, good. Hopefully I will have something out by the end of, or by summer of next year. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a process, though. It's just a lot of work. You know.
Oh, really? You're not just one of these pop stars that can just whip them out?
Yeah, I don't have a team of Illuminati people behind me writing like meaningless stuff. So I actually have to think about composition and lyrics and things like that. Go figure, right?
Well, it's not meaningless. It's figuring out who write the little mind control pieces for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Know how to like program it so that it's like hypnotic for the audience. And things.
Right, I know.
Yeah, you don't have that crew. You don't have those people.
No, I don't, man. It's just me and my partner, my other partner, my music partner. So hammering it out, just two people against the world.
Well, I'm proud of you, and I think that it's going to be great for you, and really awesome. So that's wonderful that you've been working on that. And we're obviously always doing this stuff. We're working behind the scenes, even if we're not doing shows. We're generally doing a ton of research, and you know, I've been doing some writing lately, and so. But you know, I had a baby, and
it's good. Well, I think because a lot of this stuff gets overwhelming. You know, a lot of this stuff is dark. And it's good to, I feel like my music is one of the things that saves me, you know, because sometimes I'll be upset, I'll be reading something about mind control or CPS or something like that, you know, and it's not all dark, but some of the stuff is empowering, but then it can get very dark at times. So if I can go to my music to kind of heal from that and process that, it's really, I know. Are you trying to sing? Is that what you're trying to do? She's like, yeah,
yes,
sing.
That is our co-host, Alice Bowden. She is 8 months old, and she's trying to sing there,
yeah. Yeah, so but it's good for me. I remember a few times I was really upset. I got to a Facebook fight, and then I got off the computer and I just played piano, and I was like, I feel like it just took it away, like took the anger away. Not that I forgot about it, but I was able to deal with it, you know, much more, in a much more healthy way. But, in addition to that, I've just stopped Facebook fighting with people. Yeah. You know, like, I think a lot of people, too, when they kind of, you know, wake up and they start posting stuff and people come on their Facebook page and they want to fight with them, I think most people do engage. And then they come to the realization that that's not really. It might get them somewhere. I'm not saying, because I definitely have gained friends. Usually, a lot of times I've gotten to fights or either on somebody else's thread or my thread or arguments or whatever, and I've gained friends after it, you know, or I was able to relay some information to somebody. I'm never focused on the people that just want to fight because they have their own issues. They're not, they want to be disempowered and they want to be ignorant, you know. They're not interested in new ideas and actually solving the problems. They just want to complain about the world's problems and, you know, and not really do anything about it. So I've made peace with not trying to convince those people because they're not worth my time. But I'm just trying to pull away from Facebook as much as I can. We both were talking about like how, you know, you want to pull away, and you know, it's good to have that network to be able to connect to people at the same time, it can be really like inundating and overwhelming.
It's true, yeah, and I can, sometimes I will take long breaks from Facebook and, and then when we're doing the shows, I'll generally pop back in and, but I've taken long breaks before and it's not, I feel, I don't miss it or anything when I'm gone. It's not like it's something where I'm going, I'm missing something in my life. I don't ever feel that way. It just is kind of like, oh, okay, and then but you can see where when I am on it, how much more time it takes up and stuff like that, and when I'm not, how much more I'm doing other things, and last Facebook break I took like 3 classes online. I was like doing all this stuff, and it's just, and now it's like the old joke, what was I doing before Facebook? Now it's just Facebook. I don't even remember what my past life was.
You hear about like these people that lived in like I don't exactly remember what era. I'll just say in historical Europe. I don't want to get my eras mixed up because I really don't know. Mm-hmm. But people like Da Vinci and Picasso and you're like oh they knew how to paint and everybody knew like at least 3 languages and they knew how to play a musical instrument and you're like wow, and then you're thinking oh well they weren't consumed with Facebook or television, right? There was really nothing else to do. That's what there was.
Well, and even like the lower classes like who may have had no access to books could still like play instruments and speak other languages and things like that. It's like things
and paint and do
knew how to
they knew how to garden and make things. They can
fish and like basket and weave and make clothes. I mean, they can make it clothes all day long. It's like, and none of us know how to do any of those things, but are very little. We're starting to learn some of those things, or I am as an adult, but I didn't really learn those things growing up. Maybe a little bit, but we don't see that a lot in our society and our culture today, how anybody really knows how to do anything useful. So when we take these like long hiatuses, I like to try and work on those things and try and fill in those areas. And we've been talking a lot about how we want to create these programs for children or for parents who are homeschooling their children to teach their kids how to learn some of these skills and survival skills and gardening and things like that, and how to teach them to children with special needs. And so it's just something we're passionate about, and we want to work on those types of things other than just doing the show, although I do love the show, and I think it's been a great, awesome experience. But it is nice to take a break once in a while because then we can try out some of these other things.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we took a long break, and we did a couple of shows during the break. We came out of hiding a couple of times, and we did the show with Kim Dortch and the Dortch family. That was the police state thing, and then we talked to Nat Yonker, and today we're going to be talking to Patrick Jordan of vaccine fraud. And vaccine, you can find his work at vaccinefraud.com. He's written several books, and we recommend him. You have one, I have another that we're both reading right now, but he's a wealth of knowledge. That's an interesting fellow.
Yeah, he's definitely committed to what he's doing. I'm really curious to find out why he's so committed to doing what he's doing. That's one question we usually like to ask our guests is what inspires them to do what they do.
Yeah,
because that's the thing too. You have to have a passion to go to this level where he's written all of these books, and they're so detailed and so well referenced.
Yeah, it's true.
That he has to have some kind of personal interest or passion, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for real.
And able to go that deep with his research and his writing.
Yeah, well, the first time we have a guest on, generally we ask that question. We don't necessarily ask that every time we come on because we don't want them to repeat themselves too much. But, yeah, definitely I want to talk to Patrick about that. And I've been chatting with him for a while now because we were on a break, and I came to hear his shows that he did with Clint Richardson. I think I had Clint send me one of his shows or something because he said, oh, listen to this, or I don't remember how exactly, but that's how I started listening to Patrick's work. And then, so I wrote to him, and I've been chatting with him for a while now, and he's, so I'm eager to talk to him because I've never spoken to him before, but we've been corresponding via email. And speaking of, like, we were talking about how, there's no, or how we take breaks from the internet, we take breaks from this thing. This guy, Patrick, is on dial-up still. We're going to have to call him.
I know.
Because he can't do Skype because he doesn't have a high-speed internet connection. He only has dial-up. It's like, well, the first time that I wrote to him, he told me that, and he said, I'm on dial-up, and he goes, yes, they still make those, or they still do that, and it's like, wow, really? I didn't even know that your computer could connect to that, anymore. I mean, unless it's an older computer, maybe it is, and he's got. But yeah, so he told me that, and I was like, wow, cool. That's amazing too. That he was written all these books and things like that. He's just doing it all on dial-up, and you see all the work that he does and the research that he does. If you go into his listserv where he sends out, it's sort of like a mailing list, but he does it on the email thread, and he puts out a lot. And he puts out a lot of information, and he always has a lot of commentary on the things that he's reading about, and kind of deciphers these articles and these citations for you. It's amazing. It's very impressive, and he's doing it all on dial-up. But I guess he probably doesn't have, these social. I don't think he does. I don't think he's involved in any social medias and things because can you access that stuff if you're on dial-up? I don't even know. I know he can't watch YouTube videos and stuff.
Yeah, I think you can. I don't know. I'm not going to try to answer that because I don't know for sure.
Yeah. But I'm excited to talk to him because he's really dissected the history of vaccination, or the hoaxery, whatever you want to call it, the long, arduous historical evidence that shows how they never really worked, and to begin with, and there's plenty of evidence of that, and he can explain that to us as to why that is, and to why they're harmful and why they're dangerous, and obviously it's something that we're passionate about. You got to find your passion. I think we were talking about in a previous show, it's like sometimes people can get caught up in the tiny little details of something, and get caught up in that, and then they'll end up arguing with other people who agree with them, but maybe don't agree with them on the minute details. And so then they'll fight about it to the end, And there's nothing wrong with digging into a rabbit hole and going really deep into whatever it is that you're passionate about and what interests you. But to get caught up in the little details of,
To the point where it deters you from the main goal.
Exactly.
You're getting sucked into the divide and conquer, and then we're not going to be able to focus on the real cause of the problems that are causing us distress.
Exactly. And so I just to tag on to that, and because I don't remember where we talked about it. We talked about it on another show. We might have talked about it more than once, but it's just to say that, we definitely do a lot of research into vaccines because it's just what we're interested in with our passion, and but I'm not going to fight with other people who are anti-vaxxers if we don't agree on every aspect.
Yeah.
Well,
I would. No, I'm just kidding.
Just fight to fight.
It's not worth it. I'm getting tired of fighting. I want, solutions, and I want, I think we talk about this all the time, too, on the show, because we're just very blessed, and we're going to keep talking about it. Just the fact that the people that we've been allowed to meet during the show, gives us faith in humanity, that they're people that are actually, that do care, and then have actually making a dent. And according to the Illuminati's or the elites, I should say the global elites plan, that, they're like 15 years behind now from where they want it to be. And I have to think that, throughout the years that there have been chinks that have been made in their, plan, because people have been, speaking up for the truth or exposing things or halting them. They've been halted. They've been thwarted in a lot of ways. And this is why, too, it seems like they're accelerating their...
Right, because they're trying to make up for lost time or make up for the chinks that they've experienced. And certainly no area, I don't know, but no area is more apparent than through the medical industry, the vaccine. And so that's why it's something that's so important to us. Not only that, but it's just something, if you go on Patrick's thread and you read his stuff, he's not just trying to tell you that vaccines are bad. He's actually trying to tell you why, and then also or he is telling you why, and then, but also trying to show people ways to the light and ways that you can heal.
Yeah.
And he does it with a lot of research and a lot of work, and also through a really good sense of humor.
Yeah,
and a really light personality. He can use sarcasm and things like that, but he's very approachable, and his work is really good and interesting. And I always enjoy listening to him when the few shows. I know he's been on Clint's shows like many, many times, but I've only listened to a couple episodes. But I've done more reading and stuff, and reading his work and corresponding with him directly. And, I can say he's very devoted to trying to help
Devoted's a
people.
great word, yeah.
Yeah, devoted to trying to figure out what's going on with these vaccines and how people can get better and how they can heal from them. And so it will be interesting to talk to him and ask him why he is so devoted and what sparked his interest. So we're going to take a short break, and then when we get back, we're excited to be talking to Patrick Jordan from Vaccine Fraud, so please stay with us.
All right.
Hello, thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirts at truthertees.com. I gotta think of the middle eight. Shop.truthertees.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. What's that? I don't know. It's a net. It's between things. Shop.truthertees.com. What's that? It's where you get Conspiracy Realist t-shirts. Oh, gear.
Hey there, welcome back. Thank you all for listening to Truther Talk today. We are bringing in Patrick Jordan. Patrick is an independent researcher and author of several books. You can find his books at vaccinefraud.com. Virstyne and I are reading a couple of his books right now. So we'd like to welcome to the show Patrick Jordan. Hey, Patrick.
Hi, ladies. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Patrick. Nice to meet you.
You're welcome. You're really an extensive researcher. I think my intro there didn't really give you credit for how much you do and how much you put into all of this, because I've been corresponding with you for a while, so I feel like I already know you, but this is the first time we're actually talking, so I'm glad you're on today.
Well, I am just overjoyed working with you, because the interaction that I have with you, and if I can use this phrase, because some women don't like it, working with an autism mom has expanded my knowledge and the amount of data and communication that I can bring to the rest of the world. Because in my own personal life, I started out with what's called chemical allergy, environmental illness, that catchphrase, and I started to look into it for my own health and tripped across the Defeat Autism Now protocol. And I'm looking at what was going on, and I thought, these kids have chemical allergy. And that began, many years ago, probably well before 2008. That began a view that we are looking at a continuum of disease. It doesn't matter if you're an adult, a teenager, or an infant. They have so destroyed our bodies that we have more in common than the compartmentalization that they have led us to believe.
Oh, definitely, Patrick. And it's funny that you say that, because I started, I researched, April and I both researched, I start researching because of April and my cousin, who became autism moms. But during the course of my research, I have asthma and allergies, and I've seen how vaccination has harmed me, and through that I've been able to get better by using some of the stuff that I found other people are using through, changing my diet and taking out and putting in certain things in my diet. So it's interesting, too, that, I had a lot of bad allergies and asthma, too, and as a result of me researching through, autism, came across, that. So it's all interconnected.
Yeah, definitely.
And I can explain why. And that's my mission, is to unoccult all of the BS that we have been fed from every avenue. From birth, everybody has lied to us in every walk of life, and the reason is this: it's in my books. I've got I'm working on 4 right now, 4 simultaneously. It's all one big volume. but I
Right.
got 10 prior to that. And broke this concept of a continuum that, and it's provable. Everything that I say, people can fact check me and go, oh my goodness, he's not only got the references, but his conclusions are sound. We can look to Theron Randolph, an environmental illness, and he conclusively, to my satisfaction, has proved that addiction is equivalent with allergy. But then, like you're saying, allergy is one of those hypersensitivity reactions, but isn't hypersensitivity immunity? And so now we've got allergy, addiction, hypersensitivity, and immunity, and I don't even know what to call them, systems that are all intimately related, but they're called by different names. It's all the same thing. And another thing I try to do, ladies, is dispel the fear, the concern that people have of what I saw in, I think it was Fellowship of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings series, where they were in the caves of Moria, and the orcs and the goblins were literally coming out of the cracks everywhere, down the pillars from the ceiling, up from the floor, and they were completely surrounded. And people despair that, we're being assaulted on every side by everything. But if you understand the concept of systemically, allergy, addiction, detoxification, hypersensitivity, and immunity are all the same thing, we really don't have 1 million orcs to fight. We've only got one thing to resolve. And I try to bring people a sense of peace of mind. We can just focus on very simple things and get them resolved. Then you're not fighting 1 million demons at once.
Right.
Huh. What made you interested in researching vaccines? Was it your chemical? Was it only your chemical reactions you had, your allergies? They must have been really severe, I'm guessing, right?
They were debilitating, but what actually set me on this path was my mom developed kidney disease. They call it idiopathic, which means we don't know why it happened. And I wanted to know why it happened. And the first thing that I tripped across in the Merck manual, so that's the Merck medical manual, was this reference. It's beautiful because, like I said, they lie to you. They said the most significant finding in vaccination is serum sickness, but it only happens in laboratory animals. It doesn't happen in humans.
What? Well, that's what they experiment on animals to see what effect it would have on humans. It's just ridiculous. Go on.
All I needed was that entree. All I needed was, the key word, and that's how we do research. It's keyword searching. I just needed serum sickness to get my foot in the door to find out, well, what causes serum sickness, vaccines, what does lead to kidney destruction. And that's one of the main things that happens with serum sickness. And I got to calling it the door prize because, they shoot you up with live, they call them attenuated. They're live organisms. Dead organisms. They'll shoot you up with chemicals and solvents and antibiotics. And antibiotics, by the way, is another thing that causes serum sickness. They're, toxic metals, all in vaccines. And if any one of those things did not harm you, the process of serum sickness alone can lead to nearly all the diseases that we see in North America. That's what's called the door prize. So once you get a vaccine, your life has been shortened, and as in the case of the young women that got the HPV vaccines and died in the doctor's offices, they're lethal. These are biological weapons.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I've heard you say that before, biological weapon, and it's, I couldn't agree with you more, and it's if you think about things, other animals in our universe that don't get vaccinated, you don't see a lion with chronic fatigue syndrome. You don't see things that are like, right? I mean, they're just not, they're going about their day, and it's not, it's fine. It's only us that is, it's medical induced, like you say, through antibiotics or through vaccination or through other forms of birth trauma. We've been talking about that a lot lately too. So, but it's all part of this same kind of thing. So, so why don't you speak on that a little bit more, just on what are all these modern diseases, and how do people kind of put this together with their being vaccinated with, and what is a vaccine, by the way? So we just established it's a biological weapon. So what's your definition of what that means?
Okay, so a vaccine is a superstition. It's a myth that has been perpetuated to trick people into having their lives shortened or terminated. Because what I did for 2 years, I spent 2 years straight transcribing the works of Edgar March Cruikshank, History and Pathology of Vaccination. So in 1889, there was an outbreak of cowpox. How could that be if cowpox, as they said later on, like in 1970s, how could that occur if it had been eradicated? So this guy was a famous bacteriologist, and he went investigating, and he was shocked by what he was finding, so he figured, well, I guess I better go back to the source and look at Jenner's original materials. He actually got access to Jenner's original works, and he spent the next 2 volumes showing that Edward Jenner was a fraud. And it's conclusively shown in Cruikshank's work that the governments knew that it was a fraud and signed on to it anyway. So that's why I boldly say that these are biological weapons designed for the express purpose of what I call in my first book, ICD 999, to harm, to maim, and to kill. Because, what else is a weapon for? You're sure not going to, you should not going to, like, share a meal with the knife that you can kill your neighbor with.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And so, since you brought it up, the title of your first book, ICD 999, what is that? Without giving away too much, we hope that people buy the book. I have a copy of it on my bookshelf, and I've been just starting to read it. So, so what is that, and how did you come to that?
Well, see, this is the perfect part, because here's the domino effect. My mother came down with, acute kidney disease. I wanted to know what was going on. I found serum sickness. I found vaccination.
No.
I went and just poured through the literature. I spent 3 years. I'm not affiliated with the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. I wasn't a student. I had access to their libraries. I poured over printed material for 3 years. And one of the things that I came across, of course, was I think it was the 2000, I'll have to look that up, the Burton Report on autism. So, Dan Burton was a congressman, and he brought to the attention of Congress that, autism was a budding new epidemic. And, of course, all of that is the dog and pony show to palliate people, to make them think, oh, yeah, we're taking a look into this. Whatever became of that? Well,
nothing.
I've got this really, if I can say, I need to know what your FCC status is. I've got.
Oh, you can say whatever you want.
Okay, I've got this real anal approach to data. Even if the book is the most boring thing on the planet, I read it from cover to cover. And I did that with the Burton Report, which I don't think anybody else has, because nobody talks about what I talk about. And I was bored to tears, and I almost gave it up. It was just so harmful to read this nonsense. And then I tripped over this, it was almost a casual, mention of, pay no attention, keep walking kind of thing, where they're talking about the ICD codes, which is the International Classifications of Diseases. And in them, they were talking about the ICD 999 code, which had everything to do with vaccine damage. And that's when I had the oh my God moment, that these monsters not only knew what they were doing and what the mechanism of action, but they had actually put it at the back of their book. Now, there's ICD-10 codes out there, but the ICD-9 codes ended with ICD-999, and it was vaccine-induced diseases. And it was in the Burton report on autism. And it's like, my God, they know exactly what they've done to us. They have actually damaged us with genetic weapons. That's what my research has evolved into, is understanding, okay, so, within the autistic community, everybody knows the MTHFR gene, or they think they do, okay?
Right.
They think they do. Well, what that is, it's one letter in a gene that's been mutated. One letter. What I'm trying to say is that they have that much precision that they can go into a subpopulation, change just one letter in one gene on chromosome 1, and destroy an entire generation of the species of humanity. That's the kind of control that they have. That these are genetic weapons.
Yeah, definitely.
We've come to that conclusion too. So.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I mean, as an autism mom, as you say, we all know about the the MTHFR. Did I say that correctly? Mutation. But most parents will go in there and get their kids tested for it, and they don't understand what genetics means. They don't understand that the vaccine actually caused the mutation. So they think, well, we're just kind of defective. We were just born with sort of messed up, which maybe they were, but that doesn't mean that
it wasn't mutagenic,
epigenetic,
right? Or mutagenic, right? Like it passed from generations because their parents were vaccinated. So
exactly.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And so let's elaborate on that a little bit more. So can you explain, because I know what it is, or I think I do, but can you explain that to our audience a little bit more, this mutation, and just elaborate on that if you can.
Wallace wants you to elaborate too.
You ladies are on top of it. How in the world do you have an epidemic of autism just spontaneously arise? And, they're trying to give the deflection that, well, maybe it's environmental.
Yeah.
Vaccines are environmental, and they've completely discounted those.
Yeah.
So what is in a vaccine? Well, everything that can cause a mutation. And in fact, when you look at human genetics, I'm going to try to get these numbers right. 8% of our genome codes for proteins that make up us. So I call us the host. So there's 8% that code for host protein. There's 12% that code for retroviruses, and the only way that we could have those retroviruses in our code is because they were shot into us during the 50s and probably even before then by all these monkey gut preparations that they use for polio and other mass vaccine campaigns.
So you're talking about SV40?
Oh, what SV40 is like the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, crap.
We're talking. And SV40, by the way, I had to correct myself on another show, is not a retrovirus. It's an oncovirus, which means a cancer-causing virus. And they have different pathways of expressing, but they basically they've become part of us. And so when you ladies were talking about, well, maybe these mutations were passed on. Well, yeah, they're in the germline cells, so the egg and the sperm have them, and then the parents actually have them in their somatic tissues. We have been so polluted that they have rewritten us as if we were a computer code. But the best part, as if that doesn't make you angry or sad enough, the best part is the 80% of the genome that's left, they claim, is unknown junk that has like more broken bits of viruses and stuff that they're not quite sure what it does. And to me, it's like, well, they've been infecting us since 1790 with Jenner's unknown pus. Unknown. You know, this is the days before laboratory science. They had no idea what they were sticking into people. They'd go, oh, look, pus, let's put it into somebody. Right. We've been rewritten since 1790. And so then you're asking, okay, like the MTHFR, what is that? I think it's a precision weapon because, again, I'm going to cite Merck. Merck is a very large pharmaceutical concern that, by the way, all listeners, they hold the patent on the metabolic equivalent of the folate that is no longer able to be formed in our bodies. Mm-hmm. And they have aggressively gone against people that try to sell this kind of, like, amped up folate, because it's not the kind of folate that you get in your orange juice to keep pregnant women from having spinal bifida babies. This is the actual thing that metabolically would be made in our bodies if they hadn't screwed up the gene. And so by, it's the Sherlock Holmes premise. When you eliminate the impossible, whatever is left, no matter how improbable, Merck probably designed a designer vaccine weapon to take out the methylfolate gene so that they could then make the replacement and sell it to us so that we were now their slaves. It's like, unless you take this methylfolate, you'll never be well. Well, why weren't we well in the first place? Because they damaged us.
You mean like Monsanto's trying to basically do with food, but they're doing with vaccines, right? Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt. There, and here we go again with continuums. Is there really a difference between modern agriculture? Because we didn't do any bio on me. I call myself a farm boy that lives in the grain ghetto of Illinois. I am surrounded on all 4 compass points by industrial agriculture. There is no difference whatsoever in industrial agriculture and what we see in vaccines, because even the pesticides that they put on the crops out here have things that are called, you're going to love this, adjuvants. What? In vaccines. Yeah. And what it does, it like oils, will help the chemicals stick on the plant better. Right. And, make them more effective. Well, there are oils, squalene, and a whole bunch of other things. They used to use mineral oil until people were getting, visible tumors from it. So, they switched to the self stuff. So there's oils and adjuvants in vaccines. Everything, ladies, is a continuum. The models are fractal. You can pick it up and put it anywhere else, and the pattern will remain the same. So it's like we're potentially being vaccinated through our food? You got it wrong. That's exactly it. That is, and let's look at the Gulf oil spill. Again, what are we talking about? We're talking about oil in the blood of the planet, which is seawater, because our blood has the equivalency of seawater in its constituents. And what are they doing along the coastlines? All these factories are dumping effluent, including things like mercury, Mercury is just a terrible pollutant that is, so full in the ocean that they tell you don't eat swordfish, don't eat tuna, because you're going to get mercury poisoning. And mercury in vaccines, isn't oil in vaccines? And then the beautiful part is they're using genetically engineered microbes to try to clean up the oil slicks. Don't they put microbes in vaccines? Mm-hmm. It's a continuum. It's all the same thing.
Oh my God! Wow. they can use mushrooms to do that, right? Have you heard?
That just fascinates me. I love that. Yeah, the oyster mushroom will suck up oil and convert it to food.
Yeah, and so wouldn't they do the same with radiation?
There are certain microbes on the planet that I don't know if they actually transmutate. That's a word for anybody that is interested in Louis Kervran. He said that microbes could actually change one atom to another. I don't know if they transmutate, but there's a lot of microbes that bioremediate, so they use it to, eat uranium, eat other radioactive materials, and then you would still, in that condition, you'd have to, scoop up the bugs and then stick them somewhere else.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. So you're talking about the oil spill and them dumping oil, and the same thing could be said with Fukushima leaking and them not stopping it, right? Would you say?
But my holy grail in ICD 999 was to make a connection with vaccines and radiation. And I was always looking for, are they secretly putting radioactive materials in vaccines? And after a while, I just kind of said to myself, well, pull your head out of your butt. Do they really need to? We are so completely saturated with radiation on this planet that they don't actually need to put it in vaccines. It's already in our environment.
Right.
Yeah, with the EMFs and even some of the stuff too. I mean, maybe it's not radiation, but the chemtrails too. It's they're just poisoning us from every angle.
Yeah.
Right, and so, okay, that alone gets people, and I've got an email list where quite often, and I feel too often, people are in despair over, well, they're hitting us with everything. The mercury in the ocean, the fluoride in the drinking water, the EMF, the chemtrails, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it really does seem like they are relentless and they're hitting us on every front. And the reason is because they are. But it's all coming from one source. And if we're able to shut that source down, then all of these assaults end with the ones that are perpetrating it. So I'm always trying to reduce it down to the least common denominator.
But wouldn't you say, when we talk about the MTHFR, so what that does is it creates a dependency on a supplement. Now, people will say, well, but it's natural, so it's not quite the same as a dependency on a drug. And you said that you've been researching, or you can date it back to 1790. So what about something like the mutation that we stopped being able to produce, that occurred, so we stopped being able to produce vitamin C through our liver, and things like that? Can you attribute things like
I've got my top list members looking into that, because part of the mythos that we're surrounded with is we don't know how human beings actually lived and how their bodies worked before Jenner, because Jenner destroyed everything. So, what's going on with the vitamin C gene? There is a dysfunctional gene in us that could code for vitamin C, but it's got some damaged parts in there. Where did it get damaged and when? And if it is damaged and it only needs a rewrite, what everybody needs to realize is at the University of Illinois and probably many parts all over the United States, they have tabletop gene sequencers.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is program in what kind of code you want coming out of the slurry at the other end, and they can do it on a tabletop in a very short period of time. This is the kind of control these creatures have. So why are we still damaged? It's because they damaged us and they want us to remain damaged. One of the processes that they do in laboratory science is they will disrupt a gene in a test animal to see what goes wrong. That's how they know or they claim, that's how they claim they know what that gene does is, okay, you disrupt the MTHFR gene, and all of a sudden you're not making, the proper metabolic end product for folate, and then all these other cascades in the body fail.
Right.
So they're using us as lab rats. Mm-hmm. They want us to fail. They're holding out the palliative, because what you said, Virstyne, was that it's natural. Well, if it's something made in a laboratory by Merck, because they make the amped up folate, it's not natural because your body was supposed to make it. So anything that comes from a pill bottle, even though it's claimed to be, it's a vitamin, not a drug, is still synthetic. Your body didn't make it, and they took from us. See, this is the war aspect of it. They took from us our innate natural ability to make that.
She's like, that's bullshit. I got Alice.
Yeah, the baby. She's spoken.
So the next thing that we have to ask is, when and why did we lose our ability to make vitamin C? Because that really hampers our health. And then we become dependent on what? Vitamin C, to the point where, and here's a search term for everybody, autoimmune scurvy is caused by, and where you see that show up is like shaken baby syndrome, where the connective tissue, cartilage, ligaments, tendon, bone, is so compromised from lack of vitamin C that you can't even pick up your baby without your baby's structure collapsing. Because, see, I'm an old man, and in the 1960s, it was just common practice to grab a young child by the arms and swing them around in a circle, and they'd be laughing their head off, and they'd just love it, do it again. Mm-hmm. And then parents would actually throw, I'm not kidding you, in the 1960s, I don't know what the statute of limitations so babies in there, but they would literally just throw their babies in there and catch them, and the babies would be grinning, and they just absolutely love it. You can't even pick a child up out of the crib without them being damaged, and then the state coming in and saying, you injured or killed your own kid.
Right.
This is warfare. And what it is psyops, because they created the damage. They know what they did. I mean, ICD 999, there's your code. They know that they did it, yet they're blaming the victim for the crime.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's like being raped, and then you blame the person that got raped, because then they're coming. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Now let's talk about the MTHFR situation. We can take the palliative. You can take the edge off of the disease that they created, but it's not a cure. And the only things that we're seeing right now for curing is we're looking in, and when I say we, my top list members and I do endless, constant research. I work on this stuff 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm trying to defeat the enemy. Okay, so the only thing that we can do to cure it is we're looking into some kind of natural intervention in the plant world. Plus, we know for a fact the NIH, and this is why they're coming down on homeopathy, NIH has studies that show that homeopathy actually reverses genetic damage.
That is interesting. Yeah, that they're coming down on homeopathy for that reason,
Of course, I think a general rule of thumb is any natural procedure that they come down on, you do it, because it's obviously like doing something, it's a threat to them,
My mother was on dialysis for 11 years, and a couple principles that we learned was, if you're not feeling well, it's probably the pharmaceutical drugs. Yeah. And the other thing that we learned was, whatever the doctor said, run the hell in the other direction. Possibly can.
Right. And so going back to when you, at the beginning of the show, where you were saying you got into this, you started researching the DAN protocol. In one of your other books, you talk about fish oil, I believe, right? So I wanted to get into that because there's a lot of our community, as I consider myself part of the autism community, who have been sold on that fish oil, cod liver oil is really good for you because there's omegas, and omegas helps your brain function. So what have you uncovered in your research about that?
Okay, and it's expanded since I first wrote about it in ICD 999, and it's so beautiful. And a shout out to I call my contributors to the data my hens, and among the hens, it's a reference to the little red hen that wanted everybody to help bake bread, and nobody in the barnyard would help. And
I love that story.
Little red hen baked the bread, and then everybody wanted a bite. So I have some people that contribute, selflessly and constantly to the data, because we're trying to save ourselves from the Holocaust. Yeah. And among the little red hens, you can't be sexist about it. I do have a few roosters. So shout out to Rooster, who filled in some of the data here that I would have never been able to even guess at, let alone uncover. See, your seed and nuts and vegetable oils are very prone to oxidation. So if you look at the work of Ray Peat and Lita Lee, they say the PUFAs, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, are actually poisons. They say stay the hell away from them. And they recommend things like coconut oil, the omega-9, olive oil, and animal fats. And see, now we've gone into the realm of nutrition. We're outside the maybe the clutches of the doctors, where I said, if they say something, run in the opposite direction. Right. The health community is saying, avoid your saturated fats, they're bad for you. Well, guess what? Yeah. Ray Peat, Lita Lee says, those are the good ones. Those are the ones you should be running to. So why would it be that the PUFAs, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, might be bad? Because they're so prone to oxidation. Ray Peat says that they have to put vitamin E in the PUFAs to keep them from oxidizing, but see, vitamin E then would go through its chain of oxidation, and so they put an acid agent to keep vitamin E in its active state. And so what we're looking at is these layers of deceit, because they'll say, PUFAs, man, they're really good at they're great antioxidants. Well, no, they're not. They go rancid extremely fast, and they had to put vitamin E in there to keep it from going rancid, and then they had to put acid in there to keep the vitamin E from going bad.
It's like the old lady that swallowed the fly.
I love that. Yeah, I wrote it down. I'm gonna look into that. That's perfect. What I'm looking for is analogies so people can get the pattern, and that's what we're looking at. Because what happens? They'll convince the autism moms we need these omega oils, and they'll feed their kids omega oils, and it may give maybe short-term benefits, but the long-term, and this is what Rooster shared with us, is that they're so prone to oxidation that once they get incorporated into your connective tissue and a free radical cascade sets up, your connective tissue, your joints, your ligaments, your tendons, your bones will literally start to break down because they're on fire. That's what oxidation is. It's like a burning process. Now, if you had consumed the animal fats, the coconut oil, and the olive oil, you have less of that potentiality for this breakdown. And so this is why I'm always talking about warfare. This is why I'm talking about the game of 3 steps ahead, is they already knew that if they stuck enough fish oil in us, which actually causes inflammation, by the way. That's in the ICD-9 as well. Beef tallow causes less inflammation than fish oil. They know they're hurting us, and they're doing it on purpose. So we actually have to raise our game, understand the science, and stop listening to gurus. And I'm going to tell you something, ladies. We opened up very little bio on me. I don't matter. As a personality, I'm not a guru. I'm a farm boy. Listen to the material. Look into it yourself. And don't trust the person at the health store that says you need fish oil because they read it in a magazine.
Right. Yeah, so would you suggest or do you know that the DAN protocol was sort of, with the doctors who go into the DAN protocol, who's training them that because that's how you're able to be called a DAN. I think they changed the acronym, it's MAPS now, whatever, but same difference. So you're able to be called that because you went through some training. So who's training them in this way that's making them give out this information to their patients?
Ladies, invite me back because we don't have enough time to cover that specific topic.
Okay, we will be inviting you back. Don't worry.
When you do something that's packed, it works only for a specific percentile of the population or just one person, because everybody is metabolically unique. And I prepared a bunch of stuff for this show on just population alone. One size does not fit all.
Yep.
And so even if you had like a DAN protocol, I was looking at the things like chelation, and even as a person with chemical allergy, I thought to myself, I ain't doing that. That's just plain and plain.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty harsh on the person, and I think you mentioned one of the chelating agents, EDTA. Well, we never tried that, but I mean, I know that's a pretty harsh chemical. I mean, it can cause a harsh response, as far as I knew.
Well, let's take a look at EDTA. They put it on frozen peas to keep them green.
Oh, stop it. Really?
The reason is because it chelates metals. But EDTA is not intelligent. It doesn't know what metals to chelate, so it will pull out zinc and copper and probably iron and a few others that are essential to your, daily processes. It doesn't know the difference between that, lead and mercury.
Right.
So, we actually have to, everybody working on this problem, which is, the demise of humanity, we have to raise our game to a higher level to actually understand the science, so we're not just taking things at face value. DMSO scares the crap out of me. One of the reasons why is it can activate some viruses.
Yeah, and the one that I think I've talked to you about this one before, or we've corresponded about the MMS, the miracle solution. There have been some people that have said that they've had a really glowing response from it, and other people that, like you mentioned, that they believe maybe it had activated some viruses in their children. But then that wasn't like reaching the public. People weren't hearing about those stories. They were just hearing about the glowing responses of people who were saying that, they had an autistic child, they put on this protocol, and then now all of a sudden they're recovering, they're coming back to life, and so on and so forth. You were hearing that, but you weren't hearing about these people who, okay, now my kid has pandas. And, they didn't have that before I had them on this solution. So I don't know. You tell me what happened.
Okay, so in my later books, I got 2 books that focus just on food, Operator's Manual and DOOF. and I can't remember which one I put it in. It might have been an operator's manual for the human body. I cover things like Bacillus subtilis, and that's a whole nother show just in itself. Well, if you use MMS, because these things come from laboratory science, write to me. You can find my email address on my website, vaccineprod.com. I'll send you either the link or the document itself. This is laboratory science that says if you use chlorine dioxide and you don't use it to a lethal level to completely destroy every incident of Bacillus subtilis, it will force it to go into a biofilm phase where, and it's a nasty organism. It will set up to a point where it's resistant to damn near everything. So people actually have to know what they're using.
Right. And they don't, because then they're going off of these anecdotal stories where they're hearing that people are doing so well on it, and it's sad because they're preying upon people that are desperate to help their children, and that's what it's preying upon their emotions and their desire to have a healthy child, which is no small task once they've been assaulted in the way that they have. And you can see how people want to look into these things, but then they don't dig deep enough. But that's not even their fault entirely either, because it's also being buried a little bit. It's harder to find.
In this case, you never blame the patient. We have been lied to about every single thing on this planet, and although I say you need to raise your game and start to learn pharmacology, for goodness sakes, it's not a blame. It's just saying raise your game to that level, because that's how deep we're in it. There is no such thing as food, and therefore there can't be any Repostoof, which means superfood. It doesn't exist. Since 1900, they have, they've been mutating us since 1790. Since 1900, they have had an industrial military plan to mutate every single food substance, live food substance on the planet since 1900. It's been completely mutated at the genetic level. There is a point where certain crops are haploid. They only have half of their normal chromosomes. How in the world can you build a healthy human body when the genetic material to what we're eating is only half there?
Okay.
So I make categoric statements based on fact. This comes from the Atomic Energy, for goodness sakes. I always source my material. The AEC was doing, they were instrumental in doing all these mutations. There's no food. There is no food, because it's not even what it was.
Okay. And you're also, if that's the case, then this food or plant life, fruits, vegetables, would they be able to reproduce? If they're not real food, how do they produce seeds?
Well, they do produce seed, but they're producing half of their previously natural genome. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Every next generation is only a copy of the mutation, and there's a lot of crops out there. Bananas, cassava, and I'm talking third world staples out here. There's well, let's just take a look at apples. Apples are simply grafted. They will take like a branch, a scion off of an apple tree, and graft it onto a rootstock of a completely different plant. And within the Jewish purity laws, that is like one of the gravest sins on the planet. Is when you do that, according to I guess the Gnostics, another religion. When you do that, the entire energy, the very life force of the plant, is completely disrupted. So even if it didn't start off with half of its chromosomes, the life force is gone out of these things, because they're doing asexual propagation of these plants.
And we are what we eat.
There you go. Got it one.
Yes. So we're also, like you're saying, we have all these genome that is unknown, or the markers we don't know what they are. So we're not. I mean, how would you describe that? Like, if we were talking about a human being, a human, or person, man.
I don't know. Post 19 or 1790s Jenner, nobody knows, because back then they weren't taking like tissue samples and saying, okay, here's a pristine human genome. This is what it used to look like before it got polluted. I really don't know who we are. And isn't that a starting point? Because that's what science is all about. Science begins with I don't know, and then you fill in the blanks. But in today's world, because everybody has low serotonin, that goes. And when you got low serotonin, it's like I don't know.
Okay, she said that she would imagine that serotonin, or the lack of serotonin, would contribute to things like addiction.
Oh, nice. Nice. I'm going to write that down. Thank you very much. So where would that come from? Your question was, and then that was the other thing she said. She said vaccines for 1,000. See, I got criticized for that. People that read my book said, well, all he talks about is vaccines. Well, actually, I'm talking about the genetic damage through a vehicle. The vaccines were one of the ways, radiation is another, one of the ways that they damaged us. And, have somebody tell me, just the man and woman off the street, where, when, and why did the serotonin go AWOL? Why all of a sudden in this generation is like 1 out of 5 kids got autism, and they're predicting, 1 out of 2 by 2020. How does that happen if there isn't a mechanism of action? And those are key words there. That's the heart of science. It's one thing to make a postulate and say thus and so, but when you can prove it, this is how it's done. Vaccines are the vehicle by which you can rewrite the genome.
Exactly. Yeah, and I was criticized for saying that too, because someone had approached me and said, well, I have an autistic child, but I didn't vaccinate him, and so I find it offensive that you're suggesting that autism is solely caused by vaccines. Except it's just because he wasn't vaccinated, the child wasn't, doesn't mean that he doesn't have vaccine damage, because how are we to avoid it if we don't know the lineage, we don't know if even if you did your parents do it? It's just, it changes everything. It's such a cascade, such a toxic domino effect, that how are we supposed to know unless we know everybody's medical history in your, in your family line, back to the creation of them, that it wasn't involved?
That's exactly true, because what we're talking about is generationally passed mutations. But here's another key thing. The people that might give you grief over that are missing the point that if they had a hospital birth, that baby is often spirited away immediately after delivery. Oh, we've got to clean them up and weigh them. Well, that's when they start jabbing all these poisons in. So the parents might not even know that child was compromised.
And that's another thing too. They might not even know that, because I wrote an essay about the birthing experience, because I think that the way that hospital birth is, or birth is treated to be celebrating life, but it's treated like an illness. So when Aiden was born, they took him from me in the delivery room, and he was gone for 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
I'm alone, because everybody left me to go, all my family left me to go sleep. My mom was watching my older son, who was 2 years old at the time, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm calling the nurse's office, having just delivered a 9-pound baby, so I'm going, I'm not going to be like running down the hallway, but I'm going, where's Aiden? Where's my baby? And they're going, we'll look into it. And it took them 6 hours to bring him in. The nurse comes in and she says, well, we tested him, we pricked his heel and found that he had low blood sugar, so we gave him a little bit of formula to bring his blood sugar levels up. And I said, well, Yeah, I said, well, I'm breastfeeding. I didn't want you guys to do that. And she said, well, you know, we had to do that. So I went, all right, well, I guess if you had to. So the next day, everybody's in the room, and my husband's looking over the medical chart, and he says, oh, it doesn't say that he had low blood sugar at all. It says they didn't know where your room was. They couldn't find you.
Wow.
So they went ahead and, right. And this is normal, though. I mean, it's not normal, but it's typical of what it looks like in hospital birth, because we didn't have any physical problems as far as, you know, that were detected. He was, I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have, you know, diabetes or any of these problems attributed, that they call problems attributed to pregnancy. So it was just a typical, you know, day in the hospital. So obviously when I had my third child, we didn't do it in the hospital because I would never go through that again and put the baby through that again. But the detachment of the child from the mother in those critical periods too also leaves them vulnerable. And who knows what they were doing? I don't even know, because nobody was there with, no one in our family actually saw what they were doing.
Yeah,
just to throw that out there.
That's 100%. And let's give that the person that was criticizing you the benefit of the doubt. What if the child didn't get vaccinated? Well, if the mother even ate mercury-laden fish, the mercury can be transferred to the baby. Mercury causes brain damage. That's why they call it the autism spectrum, because they're just using a garbage can catch-all of all the brain damages out there. Aluminum, just from chemtrails alone, my goodness, you don't even have to eat pickles or be shot with a vaccine to get the aluminum. That can cause tangles of the neurons. You know, there's so many things that can lead to brain damage. Anymore, and this is why I say it's a continuum, you don't even need the vaccines anymore.
She said, you mentioned something about pickles, and she was asking about mercury in pickles.
Oh, no, aluminum in pickles. Because in order to make a pickle crunchy, they use aluminum hydroxide, which is the exact same thing that they put in a human vaccine. Lymph was in bad shape. Your lymphatic system is pickled. That's why nobody has any health. That's why you have chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and a whole host of other immune system diseases, is because you've been turned into a pickle inside with aluminum from your food, your antiperspirants, your vaccines, and your chemtrails.
Your pickle, so you're fermented on the inside, and that brings me to the question about fermentation, because I remember you saying something to the effect of kombucha and some of these other things that are put out there as health foods can actually backfire on people as well. And I've known some vaccine damaged individuals who have gone that route and wanted to, you know, do what they thought was healthy and ate fermented vegetables. A friend of ours who was significantly damaged by HPV vaccine, significantly, and she, severe autoimmune response, ended up in the hospital from eating fermented vegetables and kombucha.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you want to, and if they want to, write to me, and I will share, you know, freely all that I know on the topic of food, fermentation. The use of mason jars is nothing but an austerity measure to get people in a mode of survival for living in dumpsters and eating rot, because that's what you're doing in aerobic, meaning air, fermentation situations. I, at home, use laboratory-grade anaerobic fermentation vessels, and I am doing very well on food that I fermented myself anaerobically. And one of the reasons why that the open-air mason jar ferments harm people is because the biogenic amines, like histamine, can destroy you. And so, you know, it just makes perfect sense to me why people would be harmed by saying, I want people to feel bad. This is part of this lie and occultation that they have out there, that people want to do the right thing, and they hear about kombucha, and it's easy to do, to make this mucus plug from sugar. That's all it is. And then there's this beautiful website out there called ropeworms.com, ROPEWORMS.com, and they're like, oh, I had this horrible thing, pass out of my intestine. I don't know what it is or where it came from. And yet, on the site, they talk about creating similar situations just by consuming kombucha. It's this deception going on. The alternative health community is in on it with the mainstream medical community. It's like a net. The smaller fish get through the net that catches the big fish. And so the alternative health is there with their net to catch the little fish that got away.
That reminds me, we had Glenn Olson on our show who wrote the book Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher. And when she had her awakening and she quit her job as an RX representative or prescription drugs, she went to go work for a vitamin company. And she said when she got hired that she told them, my only contingency is that, if you ever get bought out or if you ever get involved with any pharmaceutical company, I quit. And then sure enough, after a little while, that's what happened. They got owned by one of these guys, GlaxoSmith or whatever. And so it makes sense what you're saying, because if you're going the health route, you're still dependent on something because you're still not producing natural folate. You're still not producing, these vitamins in your body on their own, and it's not coming from your liver or your pancreas, or it's just you're dependent. So as long as there's a dependency, it makes sense to me that they would be in on it, because it's one or the other. If you go the natural route, you think you're doing well, but you're still taking vitamins every day.
Well, here's my breakthrough when I was writing ICD-999 and trying to work through, my mother has kidney disease, I've got chemical allergy, we got this commonality, and by the way, chemical allergy has its roots in vaccine damage as well. We got this commonality. What's going on in my own life? Because, I had to be well to take care of my mother. And I was looking at the trends in vitamins. Everybody says you need vitamin B6. It is a powerhouse, and you do need it. But it wasn't doing me any good. And I found out, that's because pyridoxine hydrochloride has to be changed in the body to pyridoxal 5-phosphate. But lo and behold, they actually sell that. Just like the methylfolate, amped up to the metabolic equivalent, they sell P5P. And see, things like that, it's just so blatant. It's like, how did they know to sell P5P when they've been selling B6 as pyridoxine hydrochloride for, since the 1930s, for goodness sakes? It's because they know. Because they're in on it. The vitamin companies knew that our pathways for phosphorylation were so damaged that they had to provide this palliative. Because, see, even if I take P5P, it doesn't correct my phosphorylation pathways that were damaged by the vaccines. This is what I'm saying. They've got us under extortion. It's like protection money with the mafia. That's what it is. Take our vitamins for else.
Yeah, it's true. And as I told you before, we have been on so many different vitamins at different times. With Aiden, they say, well, he's deficient in XYZ, he's got all these absorption problems and deficient. But the vitamins never do any good, and they say, try this form, P5P. He was on that for a little while, and that didn't really matter. It didn't really help either. Or it had, like I told you, a paradoxical reaction, an opposite of what it was supposed to produce. And so, because it's just too complex, they don't know what's going on inside him.
So here's why I say that these vaccines are precision weapons. So you were getting advice, for an autistic child, quercetin, resveratrol, turmeric, all these exotic vitamins. This is what they need to get the paradigm. This reaction of what's expected. It's like, from my estimation, your son's got a different serial number of vaccine than the other ones, because it's still part of this military experiment to say, well, now if we break this gene instead of that gene, what happens? And so his genetic profile may be completely different than the 80% of the population out there that may be low in histamine, because they're going to react completely different.
Gotcha. And the other thing to add to that, because when, like we were talking about hospital births, so when you go for a hospital birth, they do these genetic testings that they don't tell the parents the results of, or nor do they tell you that they're going on. But I'm just wondering, is it possible? I mean, they do the newborn screenings. I've heard of parents finding out for the first time that their child was given a genetic test because they said, well, they came up with markers for cystic fibrosis or some disease that's considered to be genetic. And so then they'll finally go, well, what do you need? Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You were breaking up pretty bad. I was trying to like piece it together, but you're cutting out so much. I lost the hospital birth and genetic testing.
Yeah, I was saying, so is it possible, or do you know, is there some sort of, when they take these genetic testing, do they know what they're doing when the child is then later made to be autistic by the vaccines? Because they already know your genetic makeup through these newborn screenings.
Well, if you understand the whole concept of laboratory science, in order to know what a gene does, you got to break it to find out what stopped working. That's standard operating procedure in medical research. If we take this further back to like World War II and Operation Paperclip, where they were doing medical experiments on live human beings, they're trying to find out the limits of the human machine. And so one of the things that you want to do within a controlled laboratory experiment is have the baseline. So they're probably doing the heel stick and the genetic testing and sequencing. You know, 'cause when they do heel sticks, that information goes to the Department of Defense. What does the military need with your baby's blood? It's wartime. Okay, so they're getting a baseline of what the spike was at birth. Then they shoot them up with a specific lot and serial number of vaccines that's tracked electronically. They completely linked to electronic records, because now they can automate their experiments. And now if you have the baseline, you got the genetic test at birth, you modify them with a vaccine. No child on the planet, newborn, can even process a vaccine because their thymus doesn't work for like months. The child is working on maternal antibodies for 12 months. A vaccine superstitious lie says that, oh, you need a vaccine for the baby because it's newborn. It can't work by the definition of a vaccine because the newborn has no immune system. It's not a lie. And so they're modifying the kid at the genetic level, and then as you go in and they do blood draws and they're sending the samples to the DOD, they're tracking the progress of their experiments.
That's so that's just, yeah.
And let's take a look at something that, you know, I know it's close to home, and I don't do it, you know, I'm not doing this to poke you. People that have the MTHFR gene test usually come out with a yes or no, and then what? That doesn't correct the gene damage. You're only left with taking methylfolate if it is a palliative, and now the entire family is entered into a military government database to show, hey, you know, we broke that one. That's all they're good for.
Right, and a lot of people in the autism community too are really are getting in these genetic tests for their kids. You know, we did one at the genetic test on Aiden, but I was really uncomfortable with the whole thing, and then they wanted us to do, which I didn't, the 23andMe. I don't know if you've heard of these, Patrick. Have you heard of these ones that are online? People can just go up, it's like $100. It's not even very expensive as far as these tests go, but it's like they can, a lot of these parents are getting these for their kids and saying, that now we can track. We know what kind of vitamins are going to work and which ones won't. And but where's that information being stored, or where it's being held? Apparently, you have to ask them not to store it, otherwise they will.
Oh, yeah. And I believe that. Oh, yeah, they promised me that they weren't going to send it to the DOD. And, the government will issue national security letters that will say they'll imprison you or kill you if you don't do what they say. So, these tests, and I'm not saying this to make anybody feel that, they're insane. All you're doing is you're entering your entire family tree and its susceptibilities, because then they can look at your genome and go, oh, well, we've got a kill switch for that. And I use that term actually out of the Rockefeller Medical Research Institute. They call them kill switches. They figured out how to do it genetically with bacteriophages, where all they had to do was you kill. And if they had that in the mid-1990s, if you can kill bacteria, you can kill a human with the same technique. It's all an engineering game for these guys.
Right.
I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice. All I can say is I would never personally have genetic testing done. It serves no purpose.
Yeah, I don't really find it to have been very useful for most people. I think it's more fascinating. They're kind of intrigued by the idea of it. But as far as anyone really coming up with, this was really useful for me because of X, Y, Z, I haven't really heard that. And, and the little one that we had done was not helpful at all. And then never had we gone in for any kind of testing was the lab so aggressively pursuing us to get it done. I've never had a lab call me and say, we want you to get this test. Let us help you get the insurance to cover it, and so on and so forth. I've never had that happen, but except for the one time that we did this genetic testing, and it made me feel very creepy. But then they came back and said, oh no, it's covered, you're good, it's, we'll take care of it for you. So I don't know. I think it's like you said, I don't know about the genetic testing for people, and if that's something they want to get involved in, but or if it would even be helpful.
Like I said, I'm an old man, and I go back mental images of back in the days. They used to put bands, little metal bands, around the legs of migratory birds to track them. And the have been printed would say, oh, it started in Michigan and ended up in Florida. And you could track the bird that way. And it's like these genetic tests are nothing but banding the bird's legs.
Right. Yeah, and so, this has really been a great hour to talk to Patrick, but we're just about out of time here. So I want to thank you again for coming on today, and I hope we can have you back real soon because there's so much we want to get into with you. But before we go, I want to remind everybody you're at vaccinefraud.com, and they can go there to purchase your books as well as sign up for your mailing email list, correct?
Yes.
Fantastic.
So, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Well, we thank you, and we thank you for the research that you're doing, which is really, it's not, I can't think of anybody that's comparable or comparable to what you're doing right now, so I really appreciate that. Show. Exactly. Yeah, we would love you to get your own radio show because you have so much to share.
I'll be looking into it, and thank you for the link. Yeah, that's very helpful.
All right. Well, stay tuned, everybody. We will be right back.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist T-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We just interviewed Patrick Jordan of Vaccine Fraud. Great interview. Didn't you think?
Yeah, he's so well researched, and he's a great sense of humor.
He does.
And just a wealth of knowledge. He should have his own show.
Yeah,
he has enough material that he could just have his own show.
He could have a daily show, and it wouldn't be enough because this guy. And I mean, we barely scratched the surface. That's why we kept saying, "Oh, we're going to have you back on," because I mean, and we have a really long list of people that we want to get on the show, and we only do the show once a week. And as we said during the intro, we take breaks now and again to work on other projects and stuff. But it's, I mean, I can't. We could have that guy. If we had like a 5 days a week, we could have him on every week and still not get into everything.
Yeah, totally.
It's just Patrick knows a lot, and I mean about the food, about the vaccines, about. Did you know that what he said? What did he say that the food, the genetically engineered, they put the adjuvants in there, and they call them adjuvants.
Oh no, I didn't know that. Like
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
it's essentially they're vaccinating us through our food. I was like, whoa, that was crazy.
Well, I just saw a Common Core. Somebody was posted a Common Core lesson. And they were talking about vaccinating people through their food and using GMOs. It was like a kid's lesson.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I was like, ew, what the hell, you know?
Oh, I know, and they were painting it like it was a good thing. Like, well, isn't that great that now we can just vaccinate you through your food? Like, isn't that awesome? Because vaccines are so good, right? So we can certainly vaccinate you through your food, and then you'll be super healthy. Whoa. I mean, that's just getting crazy, you know? It's like, they're just erasing history like it just never happened, you know? And then they are all projecting on us like we're the ones that are making up revisionist history when, you know, as we were talking to Patrick on the show, you know, Edward Jenner, who was cited for creating the smallpox vaccine, I can't remember if Patrick mentioned this, I don't think he did, but Edward Jenner was going on a superstition. That's what he used to create the smallpox vaccine. There was a superstition that this village had, or it was a rumor, whatever, an urban legend, something along those lines, that the people who caught the cowpox didn't get smallpox. And so he thought if he injected people with cowpox, that they would be immune to smallpox.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what? But this is the basis of vaccination, y'all. This is like, we're going off of these people.
Oh, modern day vaccination, yeah.
Modern day vaccination is still based on these superstitions and this witchcraft, you know? And it's just bizarre. But they erased that like it just never happened. And I think, you really like Susan Humphreys. I saw something with her, a while ago, and she said there's no such thing as ever doing a safe vaccine because it's just not possible because our immune systems just aren't set up that way.
Yeah.
And the antibodies that we're supposed to produce, that we produce, they're really like fragile. I mean, that whole thing, it doesn't necessarily equate to any kind of immunity at all. It's a really fragile system. So, and their vaccination is such a crude thing, and yet, and the immune system is so elegant and so complicated.
Yeah.
And we're so barely even scratching the surface of understanding it. And it's so intelligent based, and they're just using this crude, like, here, take this.
Yeah.
Like, jeez, you know, it's just, let me stick this in your body, ow, you know. It's gross. It's like, but yeah, so Patrick was great. I would love to have him on all the time because he knows so much, and he could just barely scratch the surface on so many different things. And he's constantly doing research, so you know, he just has a lot to talk about all the time. But yeah, so that was an interesting interview, and you guys should all check it out, vaccinefraud.com.
Yeah, you should.
And the book, and the book that he talked about, ICD 999. So I have that book, and I just started reading it, but I didn't know what it was yet. And he just he explains it a little bit on the show about how he went through the Dan Burton. So Dan Burton is this congressman, and he was, I think he's retired, and he had a grandson who regressed into autism after vaccination. So he had put forth to he had created a hearing, a congressional hearing, that was to explain to his fellow congressmen, to look into taking the Marisol, the mercury, out of vaccines, because they believed that his grandson's autism was induced by the mercury in the vaccines. So Patrick read the Dan Burton report, and I think it was funny, he said it bored him to tears. It was like he almost couldn't even get through it. But he had this compulsion but he has this compulsive personality that once he starts something, he has to finish it, which I wish I had that, because I'm so good at dropping projects, and moving on. I wish I had that level of compulsion, but he follows through, and he reads it, and then he discovers that they know this stuff is going on, and they know that they're essentially using us as a experimentation, as a breeding ground for experimentation. Every human life on this planet, or under the umbrella of this medical industrial complex, is being experimented upon, be it through the food, through the vaccines, through what have you, and they know it. Yeah. It's like no gray area about it. Yeah. They know that they're doing it. They know that we're and one other thing I thought was, because I always wondered this, as soon as I found out that they poked the kid's heel, they would call these things the newborn screenings, and they do they take samples of the DNA and they do the genetic testing. I always wondered what they were doing that for. And he made it very clear, well, it's in any kind of scientific research, you have to have baseline data. So they take the genetic material, and then that's the baseline data. So then they can track you for the rest of your lives, and it just makes perfect sense when you think about Obamacare and how this is supposed to track your medical history and all that stuff, because it just makes it easier for them. It's not that they haven't already been doing it. It's just that it's easier because it's all in one convenient location. And they can just go, oh, it's like gathering all the files together and then just putting it in an application or putting it in a thing on your computer, rather than having, papers, bits and pieces of papers in your files here and there, and, one in this closet and one in that, one in your storage facility or whatever. They're just like, oh no, that's too complicated, let's just put it all in one place, boom. It makes perfect sense now. It's like, oh, I get it. Yeah, because they're using experimentation, so they want to track you from, and I would go as far to say that it's even starting before they take the DNA sample, because when you're pregnant, they take all kinds of, they take your blood throughout the whole time through your prenatal care. Mm-hmm. You get test constantly, and usually you don't know what they're testing you for because it's all in their insurance codes. Mm-hmm. So you don't even know. They could be testing you for all kinds of things, and you just are like, oh well, because the doctor will fill it out, and they don't say specifically what it is. A lot of the time, they'll just kind of mark off the insurance codes. So unless you speak in medical code, you wouldn't even know what it was, or unless you asked right out, and had them go through each one. There might be 8, 10, 12 different things. You don't even know.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Who knows when they're are they even taking the data, starting it in utero, before the baby's even born? It's possible. That I don't know. But I like that explanation, because now it finally made sense to me why they're doing those newborn screenings.
Yeah. Interesting.
I thought so.
Yeah.
And I would say, and so how many areas were being hit, and they're all just kind of hitting you from the food, hitting you from the chemtrails, because a lot of people, I think, who are chemtrail chasers, I'm not. I know about them. I find it very interesting. If anyone asks me about them, I refer them to Dane Wigington, because I don't really know that much about it. But I do know that there have been several times where they've used aerial vaccines. There have been several occasions where aerial vaccines have been used. And even in this country, there was one in Florida. They used an aerial vaccine to vaccinate against dengue fever. I don't know why.
Dengue fever. They and the Gates Foundation funded this group that was using mosquitoes. Would that be considered an aerial vaccine? So they use mosquitoes. They bred these like only female mosquitoes. So when they bite you, they'd actually vaccinate you against dengue fever.
I think that, yes, I remember that, and I think that that was malaria that the Gates Foundation funded. I'm not certain, but maybe that they were using it for. I'm
pretty sure it was dengue fever.
Oh, was it dengue fever? Okay.
Let's fight about the details.
Let's fight about the details. I don't know exactly, but I know malaria.
I'm not sure, but
they've done the same thing that you just described.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then it's been done in different areas. There was in just a quick little search I did, and there was a rabies vaccine that was aerial sprayed over Texas. I never heard about that one. That was funded by the Gates Foundation. Of course it is.
Of course, yeah.
But of course. So evil. This is an evil guy. But yeah, they've used those. And so when people ask me about chemtrails, just because I have a background in vaccines, I just say, well, I mean, I know they're that, because a lot of people, I think, don't know what they're doing. I don't think any of us really know for sure what those are all about. But there certainly could be part of it is that they're using them to vaccinate us. You think so, Alice? That's Alice Bowden, third member.
I know, it's horrible. I know.
Yeah. I know. How dare they, huh? How dare they do that? Because how do we even know that they're doing it? But that's one thing that's going on. So we're being hit on all these different levels. And then it's happened all over the country, too. I know that they're done the aerial spraying in this country, Florida and Texas at least, and also in Australia. They've done those, and they've done it in where did they do the malaria one? That was somewhere in Africa.
I want to say, malaria, I think they did something in Brazil.
Oh, well, there you go. And then Brazil, too. So we know at least that's going on. We don't exactly know. And then, but I'm saying, like, we're being hit on multiple levels because, as he mentioned, the foods they're basically genetically engineering the foods, which is genetically engineering us. We are what we eat. And we are being vaccinated through our food. And we're also being vaccinated through the sky. West Nile virus, that was another one they sent out, and area spraying, and so a bunch of them, and they used drone technology to deliver the vaccines, and I don't know. So are they spraying us with? Is that what the chemtrails are? Do you think?
Yeah,
maybe. You're like, yeah.
I'm just over it. I know their capabilities. I know their plans. I'm not surprised by any of this stuff anymore, and I'm not scared. My focus is on trying to figure out how to protect other people, how to warn other people, how to protect myself, and and to heal myself and anybody that will listen. So.
Yeah, and right, and I think one other thing that he said that I think was really good and insightful is that the vitamin industry, you can't necessarily trust them either, because then they're also in on it. So they might take some information like, and we kind of knew that too when we had Gwen Olson on our show, although I didn't quite put it together the way he did. But when she was on the show and she said that, she told them when she quit the pharmaceutical industry or being a pharmaceutical rep to go represent a health company that sold vitamins, she said she'll stay with them as long as they don't get bought out by a pharmaceutical company, which of course they did get bought out by a pharmaceutical company.
She was like, peace, I'm out.
Yeah, so she was like, peace, I'm out. But the thing is that if these guys are owned by the same people, they're both owned by GlaxoSmithKline or both owned by Pfizer or these kind of big pharmaceutical companies, then what makes you think that they're giving you healthy things, that they're giving you good vitamins? So they'll take...
I know, this news is what's worth crying over.
It really is. I agree, Alice. It's so sad. So the thing is that they'll take something like, and I asked him about the fish oils, because they'll take something like that and go, well, fish oil is good for you because it has omegas, and omegas is good for the brain. And so therefore, that would be good for somebody who had, good for somebody who has, learning disability or neurological problems. But then they add all these oils that cause inflammation and cause all these other problems to them. And so then people are taking them, so they're kind of like counteracting them. And I've seen commercials on TV for Bayer and some of these other like evil corporations who are making these products now, fish oils, and making these vitamins and things. So I wouldn't trust that at all.
Yeah.
And so it's tough out there, because his point, I think Patrick's point is kind of like, well, did you think that they were going to sit there and they're going to demolish you and take away your very genetic makeup? So they're genetically reassigning you, they're taking all this stuff, and then they're just going to let you have a cure? That it's going to be that easy that they're just going to go, okay, and so now here's some vitamins, like these guys are okay. No, so you got to be discerning about all that stuff. It's so tough out there.
At the end of the day, though, you're just responsible for your own health and what goes into your body.
And you got to listen to those signs, because a lot of times they'll, you got to listen to those. Your body is talking to you. So if you're taking something, a vitamin, and you think that it's really good for you, but it's making you feel bad, then you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be taking that.
Yeah, and maybe, or like like with pesticides and stuff too, right? The GMOs or the GMO foods that they create. Well, you need to think in terms of this. If bugs eat it and they die, then maybe it's not good for me. Yeah, you're bigger than a bug, so you're maybe not going to die. Because they're ingesting large amounts. Say you're eating it's like them taking a nibble off a leaf. It's like them eating a heaping salad of lettuce, right?
Right.
If you ate a heaping salad of poison, you would probably die. But
exactly.
For us, it's not, going to affect us directly and immediately. But it's still going to affect, science. People talk about, the science. Science, cause and effect,
Yeah. And, what all they have to do, all these guys have to do, these chemical engineers who make shampoos and they make these pesticides and they make these types of things, is that they have to show a way to poison you just enough to not kill you and to not show any immediate effects. Yeah. They don't, and that's it. And then the product to become approved. So obviously, if you put something out into the market and it's killing people on site, that's going to raise some red flags. I mean, I say obviously because vaccines do that, but yet people still don't seem to recognize it.
Well, they just pulled those vaccines in Mexico, but because a couple of babies died from the hepatitis B shot, and of course they're blaming it on bad needles. But I think people are starting to wake up and realize what's going on.
Yeah, well, what they do in this country, and maybe they messed up and didn't do that in Mexico, is that they use different lot numbers and different batch numbers of the same vaccine, and they'll put those out, like they'll mix them, so that they don't have such a huge, so it's not super obvious that a bunch of people get sick at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and we've had Sarah on our show before, and maybe I mentioned this with Patrick, I don't remember, but her and her sister both got the Gardasil vaccine on the same day, and she had a serious reaction, whereas her sister didn't. She did react, but not quite as bad.
She had a bunch of warts. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so, but then they found out through looking through their medical records that one of them had one lot and the other had a different lot. So that's what they do with the vaccine. So they'll send different lot numbers to the same pediatrician's office or the same doctor's office, so that when they give them out, they don't have a bunch of kids just dying, And they've taken your DNA at birth, right? So the vaccines are tracked as well. All this stuff has a tracking system on it, and so they'll be tracking you from birth. So they kind of are like, okay, so let's give this to Sarah, let's give this to Aiden, let's see what happens. Now we have their DNA sampled here in the beginning, and we're going to check how that affects their genes down the road. And and makes a mutation here and there, and it's fascinating stuff.
It's
it really
like salakadoola, michigaboola, bibbidi boppity boo. But like with vaccines.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Totally. Absolutely. It's just, yeah, and it's so bizarre, but it's fascinating in a way too, because you see how they just, I don't know, it's just intricate, and they're, I guess Patrick is just confirming a lot of what I suspected, which is that these things are biological weapons, and they're putting them out there into the universe because they want to.
Not mince words. That's what they really are, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're biological weapons, and when I was on Dr. Rima's show, and she was like, I said something to the effect of, it's almost like a genocide, and she goes, what makes you stop? What makes you say almost, versus like, she goes, you just not know, like, what you're talking about? You're just trying to be polite? Yeah. And I was like, oh, snap. Dr. Rima, and I just said,
she doesn't care. She will say what's on her mind, but a lot of people, just like when we had Gwen Olsen on, like April and I were talking before, we're like, all right, well, we're just going to stick to the pharmaceutical questions. We're not going to bring up eugenics or genocide in any. And then she just started going off, and we were both like, damn! Like, we were like, texting. Right. Like, each other back and forth. We're like, oh, she knows. She's gone that deep. We're like, hell yeah! So.
Right. Well, once you get to a certain level, it's hard not to see. And that's what Rima was kind of getting at me with that, was like, have you just not gone far enough to recognize that that's what's going on? Or are you just trying to be polite? I think I'm just trying to be polite because I didn't, you don't want to just put it out there into the universe if you don't really know if that's what's for sure going on. But once you've researched enough, when you're at like Patrick Jordan's level and you've been down that, it's like, and you've seen the documents that say, yeah, we're experimenting with people, and we know what we're doing, and we know that it's killing and causing autism and so on and so forth. So yeah, so what? And then
but how do and then they're like, how do we like refine this to make them more, how do we make fucking Delta workers, when they're not trying to fix the problem, they're trying to make it more refined so they can have control and do something with what they're doing,
Precisely.
Sick.
Right. It's totally demented. It's like, how do we make a Delta worker? How do we make a good military man? How do we make a good, worker for Microsoft? How do we make a blah, blah, blah? It's like trying to figure out, to refine it, as you say, and to try and get it. And so we're not really regarded as human beings or as, life that's valued. We're regarded as lab rats or guinea pigs or, however you, whatever. I mean, I don't even know that we're valued that much, Scientists probably love their lab rats, we more if they have a soul, more than we're regarded by whomever this is working on us, and so it's and again, like, that doesn't mean to say every doctor and every nurse and everybody out there is in on this whole conspiracy, because as we've had when we've talked to Dr. Rima and stuff, we talk about how they're indoctrinated to just basically not ask questions.
Yeah.
And to go with the program, otherwise they get ousted.
Or just the simple fact that the sciences are separated. So the nephrologist doesn't understand neurology or toxicology or epidemiology. So in order to understand how the whole system works, you're going to have to study all those areas to really get a bigger picture of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's what I was talking about, what Suzanne Humphries was saying. It's just like they don't understand the complexities of the immune system. They're not, even probably a lot of immunologists don't work on it. We're curious. Because there's been a lot of incidents where microbiologists have been ousted or suicided, or there's just an unusual number of deaths in that scientific community. Yeah. So we're I have some curiosity as to essentially, I can pretty much safely assume that they were probably ousted or murdered, but I am kind of curious as to what they're working on and what's so fascinating and interesting about their studies that somebody felt so threatened by them.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, we're just about out of time here, so we want to thank Patrick Jordan for being on the show today. It was awesome. Please check him out at vaccinefraud.com. Buy his books. They are available at his store, vaccineprod.com, and I think you can also find them on Cafe Press. So until next time, peace, truth, and love, y'all.
Peace, truth, and love, you guys. Bye-bye.
I've been studying vaccines for the past 3 years of my life when it came up in my professional life. And my current opinion about vaccinations is that they have never been safe. Never has there been a safe vaccine. Never will there be a safe vaccine. And it is not possible to have a safe vaccine. The reasoning for that is that the actual process of vaccination defies the natural function of the immune system of living beings. It thwarts the immune system into a balance that's very unnatural and that leaves it susceptible to more things than just what you've maybe vaccinated supposedly for. Putting a disease matter into a body and thinking that the manner of which it's going in, i.e. usually through a muscle, through the skin, using a very unnatural thing, a needle, combined with all the chemicals and antibiotics and things that the manufacturing companies may not even know about at the time that they're being injected into a muscle. There's no possible way that that can be safe. Now, when you're bypassing the normal immune system by putting this disease matter into a muscle, you are stimulating yet another abnormal response at the site of the injection, pooling of all sorts of metals and things that call in the immune cells in this very unnatural way. And the result that these manufacturers or designers of vaccines often look for is simply an antibody, which is one small thing in the cascade of immunity that is so incredibly elegant they probably cannot appreciate, obviously don't appreciate, if calling a simple antibody, which is highly unpredictable, immunity is insanity. If indeed it is such a miraculous product, wouldn't we be noticing how miraculous it is? Are they saying that we are just too stupid to notice that this is killing people and maiming people, that we're too stupid to notice that it's miraculous? You know, I think that is a lot of the argument. We're just too stupid to notice how miraculous this is. So to protect everybody, they're going to give it to us anyway. Why must such a wonderful product be forced upon people since the beginning of vaccination? If people were really seeing each other dropping dead of smallpox and they were really seeing each other being saved by a smallpox vaccine, the line would be out of town, you know, to get it. That's never been the case. The history books really show that the people that were vaccinated were among the sickest, that many children were dying after smallpox vaccinations, that they were developing terrible ulcerations, beautiful, perfect babies, you know, forced into smallpox vaccines, either dying or developing terrible, terrible diseases. And the diseases are often said, oh, that would have happened anyway. But parents who watch this happen time and again know otherwise. So those of us who actually notice the science is not backing up vaccination, those of us who notice that people are being maimed and killed by vaccinations, those of us who have experienced our own vaccine reactions are categorically thought to be mad, despite the fact that we've actually studied it. You know, none of my colleagues in the past studied vaccines, yet they still would think that the sound bites that they heard over and over and over the years about vaccines being safe and effective trumped any book knowledge that I may have attained and tried to discuss with them. It's baffling. It's like the minds have been sucked into this paradigm so deeply, and it's not just the minds of these doctors, but it's the safety net, and it's the comfort zone, and it's the rewards that they're getting as a result of all they're doing. And the rewards are not watching people get healthy. The rewards are monetary and the rewards are power. That's it. It's money and it's power. Many of the vaccine enthusiast doctors will parrot the phrase that babies need to be vaccinated when they're young because the take rate is better for the vaccine. Parents are being told to bring their 2-month, 4-month, 6-month-old infants in to have them injected with some 24 different disease matter injections, complete with the polysorbate 80, amounts of aluminum that are absolutely unsafe with the amount of body weight they're being injected into, which, by the way, is to generate the immune response that's desired. That's what the aluminum is there for. They're being told to bring these children in And the real reason is because they need to get them there at 1 year. They need to train the parents. So to train the parents, they're injecting these children. I mean, how sick is this? If it's only